Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Astrogairu and I hope you're doing well. In this particular series, I'm going to be talking about astrological decans and what those mean, why they're important. But before we get started, I just want to take a brief moment to just say thank you in advance. I just recently established my channel, so I don't actually have a whole lot of views at the moment and almost don't have subscribers yet. But I'm working on it by, consistently trying to put out more content and yeah, just more material. So I just want to take this moment to just thank you all, wherever you are in the world, for taking the chance and, taking time out of your life to support me, to support this channel. Just thank you in advance for the subscriptions. Thank you for liking, for commenting, and for sharing. And yeah, this is something that I'm very passionate about. It means a lot to me, even more so than subscribers or likes or comments. It's just I'm just passionate about talking about astrology and sharing um, my experiences and so forth. So I'm so glad that I finally have sort of like the confidence to kind of do it. I decided, I've been thinking about it actually for so long, and I just decided like last week I'm just gonna dive in and just go with the flow and see where this thing goes. So here we go, and yeah, I just want to say thank you once again from the bottom of my heart, and yeah, let me not start rambling. So yeah, oh, also just one thing I wanted to say is I have made some recordings as well that I have posted to the channel where I talked about astrological elements. Those are the fire signs, the earth signs, the water signs, and the air signs. And I also talked about the qualities as well, cardinal signs, fixed signs, and mutable signs. So all of those I have posted to the channel. So if you check through the videos, um, you will find them there. Um, so yeah, so we will get started. I will get started talking about the decans. So decans are pretty much one zodiac sign split into three, if I should put it that way. Um, they are important in my opinion because they sort of to help to explain why people that are born under the same sign could be uniquely different. You may have heard people say, "Oh, I'm a Cancer, but I'm not like that other Cancer," or "I'm an Aries, but I'm not like the other Aries. Um, I have this other quality about me, or I have this other quality about me." So that is because of the decans, actually, and also the amount of degrees to which, well, the degrees are pretty, well, they're not actually even. It actually depends, like where um, the influence of the other planet kind of falls within that degree. Um, but there are like some subtle differences that definitely exist within each sign, and that's because of the way that these decans are sort of like, like organized, or how it's understood. And every zodiac sign basically owns or has ownership of 30 degrees. That's what makes the 360 degrees um, in the end. Like when you think of the natal chart, that wheel, the round wheel, it's 360 degrees, and that is basically a sum of the 12 zodiac signs put together, that they make the 360 degrees. Um, and that's also commonly known as the birth chart. When people talk about, birth chart interpretations and so forth, which I also do, by the way, that's basically what it means, is that combination of all those signs put together to make the 360. And that's why also, like, when you're doing an interpretation, or when you are, sorry, when you are talking about a particular zodiac sign, like let's say you're talking about a sun sign, for example, or you're talking about a moon sign and describing that to somebody, that's usually not the totality of that person's character, because they're made up of 360 degrees worth of energies and elements, that all have a unique, influence on their character and their individuality. So, when you talk about Gemini, for example, they may definitely not neatly fit into the, typical characters of a Gemini, because they might have a moon that's in a different sign, at a different degrees. It might even have the same moon as another Gemini, but just because of the decans and the degrees to which they vary, can also lead to some subtle differences in their temperament, in their mood, in the way they react to their emotions and feelings and stuff, as far as we're talking about the moon. But that's not what this video is about, so I digress. But coming back to decans, yes, each zodiac sign has 30 degrees, and so when you split that into 3, you have 10 degrees each. So the first decan is usually from 0 to 10 degrees, and then the second is from 10 degrees to 20, and then from 20 degrees to 30 is the last decan, which is known as the third decan. Also, one other thing to remember is that all the decans exist or function within the triplicity of the sign, or within the element of the sign. So if you're an Aries first, second, and third decan, your sub-rulers or your co-ruling planets will all be within the element of fire. So it's not possible to be an Aries first decan and have rulership by a water sign or an earth sign. The rulership is always usually within the same element. So it stays within the same, it functions within the same element. So if I'm using the example of Aries, for example, the first decan in Aries will be ruled by Mars. So usually the first decan tends to have a double influence because it's ruled by the main zodiac sign's ruler. So Aries is ruled by Mars, Aries is a zodiac sign. The totality of those 30 degrees are ruled by Mars as the main ruler. But then the first decan of Aries gets a double that influence, So usually first decans tend to be really, really powerful. That's when the energy is quite potent and quite stronger, because it has the double influence of the main planetary influence and also the sub influence. So it has, the first decan has the Mars rulership as an overall energy, and then it also has the sub rulership of Mars as the first decan. So that's double Aries, so that's a typical Aries. So first decan Aries would kind of fall within the what we might call the so-called typical stereotype, should we say, of an Aries person. But then the second decan of Aries would be ruled by the second fire sign. So that would be Leo. So the Leo's ruling planet is the sun. So the second decan of Aries would actually be ruled by the sun. So it would have influences from Mars as the overriding zodiac sign zodiac sign planetary ruler, and then also have the sub-ruler of Leo, which is the sun. So the second decan will then have influences of the sun and of Mars combined. So already you see that the second decan Aries will have some character traits, temperaments, moods, behaviors expressions of energies and vibrations that will be slightly different to the first decan, who only has Mars and Mars, you know? And the second decan has Mars and Sun influences in their Aries vibration, in their overall Aries vibration. So you see what I mean? So that's how it functions. And then the third decan of Aries would then be the next or the last fire sign, which is Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So the third decan sign would have influences from Mars and from Jupiter. And that's again also quite different from Mars and Sun or Mars and Mars. Of course, in totality, these are all Aries people. They fall within the 30 degrees that I talked about initially. But then when you break down those 30 degrees within the period that the Sun is in Aries, to make it Aries, those other planets are also having an influence on it. So the Sun has influence on the second decan, Jupiter has an influence on the third decan of Aries, and Mars has rulership over all three of them as an overall energy under its 30 degrees, but also even more so, potently so, over the first decan. I wonder if that makes sense, or is it now more confusing? And also, like, decans are not they're not to be confused with casps. I could maybe make another recording where I talk about casps. For example, if somebody is born, let's say between the period June 23rd to 24, I think I should double check that. They're what's called a Gemini Cancer casp. You know, that's a kind of different. It's almost a little bit same, that they have a little bit of that Gemini influence, just as they were about to you know, just as the sun was about to start rising in Cancer or move into Cancer. So then they would have a little bit of an influence. Somebody who was a Gemini Cancer casp, who is a Gemini Cancer casp, will have the influence, a little bit of influence of Gemini, as that Gemini energy starts to fade away. But then they will also have obviously the Cancer influence, and they will have the Cancer influence already in double amount, because it would be the same. For example, the first decan Cancer would be Moon and Moon, because the Cancer is ruled by the Moon, so it will be Moon influence times 2, plus a little bit of that Gemini that they just kind of pulled from, you know, the last days of Gemini. Whereas Cancer and Leo would have a little bit of Leo traits as Leo starts to emerge or starts to rise, you know. But those are casps, those are totally different, and those usually involve two elements. For example, as in the example of Gemini and Cancer, you have the air and the water influences there in that Gemini Cancer casp, whereas with the decans, it stays strictly within the elements. It has nothing to do with other elements. It stays strictly within the particular element. Yeah, so yeah, pretty much those are what decans are. And I think these are important. I think decans, along with casps, are quite important because they do help to kind of, especially when you're doing a natal chart, you know, interpretation, they really do help to kind of get the nuances and the subtleties, you know, that exist between individuals, you know. Are they a casp? And also what decan are they in? These are definitely things that yeah, that help to show what makes us different and also what makes us similar, because you would find that again, going back to the example of Aries, for example, the second decan, it has, like I was saying, has co-rulership by the sun, yet it's an Aries sign. So Aries would have a little bit of similarities to the sign of Leo, even though Aries and Leo do not occur or do not happen in the same season. Like Aries comes, um, just before spring. Aries is a cardinal sign. It introduces the spring season, and then in the northern hemisphere that is, and then Leo is more towards the summer and later parts of summer. It's like in August about. So, but then that Aries person and that second decan Aries person might have some similarities to Leo person. Um, and the Aries third decan that has co-rulership by Jupiter may have some similarities to Sagittarius, even though Sagittarius comes even later in the year as well, and that's why we're able to sometimes do this kind of elemental comparisons, um, where we talked about how, fire signs may may have some similarities. Some water signs may have some similarities, like when we say that fire signs are passionate, they're intense, they're go-getters, It speaks to the overall energy of the fire element, but it also speaks that somebody who is Aries may have some of those adventurous traits, of a Sagittarius, because maybe they're a third decan Aries, and similarly, a Sagittarius person may also have some Arian, characteristics, because they might be like a second decan or third decan Sagittarius, and that's what makes the elements similar and also what makes them, different, basically. It's because of these groupings. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much um, all I had in this section on the decans. Just breaking it down, what it means, and why it's important in astrology, and the degrees to which it functions. And also that it functions within the elements. That's important to note, and that decans are different from casps, because casps tend to um, involve different elements. Um, like the example I gave was Gemini Cancer, so there you have a little bit of air and water, or it could be a Cancer Leo Casp, so you have some water and fire influence there. So yeah, so those are different. And I just wanted to share this and point this out. I hope that this was useful, that you picked up something new, a different perspective maybe. And it would be so great to hear from you guys. Please leave some comments, in the section. If you already had an understanding what decans were, how you understood them, and also let me know what decan you are. And just if you have anything new, and if you guys would like me to make more content, breaking down the characteristics of, every decan of each zodiac sign, I'll be more than happy to do those as well. Just let me know if that's something that would be, of interest to you guys. Then I could do that. Like I just made some examples here with Aries, with Gemini, Cancer, and Leo, but I'll be more than happy to actually make individual videos where I talk about what it actually entails being an Aries first decan, for example. What kind of temperament do they have? How do they behave? And how do they handle, you know, life? And how do they handle it differently from a second decan Aries and from a third decan, Aries? So yeah, definitely would be more than happy to do those if that's something that you guys would want me to do. Yeah, so with that said, I just want to say thank you so very much. Once again, I just want to remind you all that I have made content where I have talked about elemental signs, and also where I talked about qualities like cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs. So if you visit my channel, you'll find those videos posted there as well. Would really, really appreciate it if you guys would subscribe. That way you would know, you'd be notified when there is more content. Yeah, and if this is something that you like, I hope that you will hit that like button. And yeah, and I hope to hear from you guys in the comment section and see you guys in the next recording. and ciao.